Arsenal won, Chelsea nil in the London derby. You said sarcastically last week it's not going to be a thriller. You were proven right. Just the one goal win, Mikel Merino header from a corner. So, what was your overriding feeling at full time? Was it a sense of relief?
Yeah, I would say so. It was a game Arsenal had to win. Like you said, going into it on the back of three without a win in the league, they just had to make sure they get the win, especially after Forest had won the day before and it closed the gap to 1 point. Arsenal knew if Chelsea won, then suddenly Chelsea would only be 3 points behind them, and it would very much be in a sort of bum fight for top four. And so they had to get the job done and find a way to win. So it wasn't pretty, as I didn't think it would be, but I did think Arsenal were pretty good. They were thoroughly deserving of their win, and certainly in the first half, or the first sort of 35 minutes of the first half, is the best we've seen Arsenal play for a while. I thought they were good. They were aggressive. They played in Chelsea's half. They pressed well. They created chances. The only issue is they didn't take them. Again, when by the time Marino scored, Arsenal should have already been ahead, but it was a deserved goal when Marino did score. And so, yeah, I thought there was some promising signs from them. The second half wasn't great, but they defended really, really well, and they just made sure they got the job done. And I think that was the most important thing going into that game.
Yeah, definitely. They were helped by Robert Sanchez gifting them some chances in that first half, weren't they? But and they ended their, I think it was 7 Premier League games without a goal from a set piece.
Mm.
They ended that. I mean, there's debate about did Marino mean that header? I think he did, but the important thing is it went in to the back of the net. And given that Saka's coming back in a couple of weeks, was that the perfect time for Arsenal to end their set piece drought?
Yeah, I think at the moment, when we know that Arsenal are struggling to score goals and to create major chances, in games, set piece has been such a strength of theirs that for it to sort of fall off the cliff basically in the last few weeks at a time they really needed it was not great timing. So it was good to see that come back. It's such a strong weapon that Arsenal have, and I think Marino absolutely meant that. I thought it was pretty harsh when I think I was listening to the highlights when I got home from the game, and I think it was Alan Smith was on the highlights saying, "Oh, he didn't mean that. He's flicking it on." I said, "Oh, I don't know." I thought that was definitely a deliberate little sort of looping header to the back stick. And it was a good header from Mourinho. It's 4 goals in 7 games. We can all have our say on how he's doing at Arsenal at the moment, but 4 goals in seven appearances as a makeshift striker in a position never played before. He's doing a good job for the team, Mourinho. Is it a long-term thing? No, absolutely not. I don't think any of us want it to be a long-term thing. But while he's there and while he's being asked to play in that position, you've got to give him credit. And he was a difference maker again on Sunday.
Certainly was. Yeah, I mean, it was Arsenal were helped by obviously Chelsea had no Nicholas Jackson, no Cole Palmer as well. They were not troubled at all in that second half. Bit of a grind, as you just said off camera, but they weren't troubled at all, which is the important thing. And I think that's now it's 20 Premier League games unbeaten against the so-called Big Six, if you still want to call them that. So I guess that can be interpreted in one of two ways. Firstly, it's great that Arsenal are doing well in these big games, but at the same time, is it frustrating because it also means that they'd be higher up in the league if they hadn't dropped points against teams, you wouldn't necessarily expect them to drop points against?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it also shows what we all kind of know is that when Arsenal play teams who like to open up a little bit against them and attack, which the big six, as you say, will tend to do because they go into those games wanting to win, not just wanting to not lose. And Arsenal are better at dealing with that. But when it comes up against teams whose sort of sole intention is to sit deep and not give them any space and not just leave themselves open at the back, then they struggle to break that down. So I think those results and the sort of history of those results just show what we kind of already know. It is impressive though what they're doing against the big six. For so long, Arsenal were always the kind of the little kid at the party when it came to the big six, and we got so used to them just sarcastically tapping us on the head as they put 3 or 4 goals past us every single time, home and away. So it's nice to be in a position now where we're the team that are hard to beat and coming out on top against our so-called rivals. And that, fingers crossed that can continue. But obviously, going forward, you've got to take advantage of that by winning the games that we're all expected to win, and that has to be the sort of focus for Arsenal next season, is to find a way to come to pick the lock against the low block and things like that, so you can really take advantage. Because it's mad to think they haven't lost so long against a big six rival, and yet they still haven't won the league in that time. And so it'll be incredibly frustrating. It was something that Mikel Arteta and the coaching staff have to find a way to break through. But yeah, it was a deserved win on Sunday, no doubt about it. The second half was like I said, it was a bit of a grind. It was a case of I think Arsenal was so new for well they had to get themselves over the line, and having got the lead and kind of sussed Chelsea out a little bit and seen what they had to offer. I think they were fairly confident that Chelsea weren't gonna, unless they did something stupid, Chelsea weren't going to get through and weren't going to find an equaliser. And I think the second half was just about, doing your job, making sure you don't make a mistake, and then get the win that was so important.
Yeah, well, Ryan nearly did something stupid with that. Was it Kukurea had that volley, then squirmed under his body. So that was a big heart in mouth moment, but they survived it. And it's now, so looking at the Premier League table, they're 12 points now behind Liverpool on the same number of games. I know we said last week that the title is a foregone conclusion. It's not happening now, but looking at how Liverpool played in the cup final, it was their worst performance of the season so far. They've now lost back-to-back games for the first time this season, and I've seen a lot of Liverpool fans on social media now saying, the title is not a formality. The race is still on. Is it?
No. Of course, it's done and dusted. Liverpool fans will say that because they're football fans. I think Arsenal fans have been saying exactly the same thing if we're in the same position as Liverpool, but it's done and dusted. It's been a bad week for Liverpool, no doubt about it. I think there was certainly a bit of a hangover going into the Carabao Cup final after what happened against PSG, which was such a demanding game emotionally and physically for them. Newcastle was just more up for it at the weekend. They looked more up for it. They were hungry. There was so much sort of history riding on that for Newcastle. I think there was a lot of not revenge, but they wanted to put things right after what happened a couple of years ago in the final against Manchester United, and emotion saw Newcastle through in the end. But look, that's not going to affect Liverpool in the league. They've got too much of an advantage. There's not enough games left. Arsenal aren't going to win every game between now and the end of the season. Far from it. So no, look, the league title is Liverpool's. There's no doubt about it. What Sunday was so important for Arsenal was just consolidating that second position, opening up the gap on Nottingham Forest again, and moving further away from the likes of Chelsea. I like to be optimistic, but I'm not optimistic about a title coming to North London this season. There's definitely going to be some celebrations in May up on Merseyside, not in North London.